Okay, here's a program that I'm going to use to demonstrate reading data from a file and storing it in an array, and then taking that array and do some processing on it to find the total of all the values in the array, the average of all the values, and the minimum and maximum values. Okay, so it's going to process some sales data for an office, and the first thing I need to do is store my data in an input file. I already have my file here, but I'm just going to go through the process that I use to create it, which is to right click on resource files and choose add new item, and then choose a utility file and a text file and give your file the name. So here you can type sales, it'll add the .txt, or you can just type sales.txt. Either way is fine. But going through this process, you're going to create the input file in the correct location. This will put it where your project file is, where your .vcxproj file is located. Okay, I'm not going to choose add because I already have this. All right, so I've got a constant declared number of offices is 15. And then you'll see here I've got an array called sales, and the size of that array is 15. Now I might not use all 15 elements in the array. That's okay. I have to give it a size that will definitely hold all the values. And if I look in my input file, I think I have 8. Okay, I'm going to be working with an input file, so I have that declared. This is going to be a counter that's going to keep track of how many offices I read in from the file. That's going to be important information. If I read in 8, I need to store that data so I can use it in my loop. And I have an index here. Okay, in addition, I've got some variables declared here. Total sales is just what I'm going to use to accumulate the total of all the values that are in the array. Anytime you accumulate a total, you need to have a variable that starts at 0. And then I'm going to calculate the average sales, the highest sales, and the lowest sales. So first I'm going to open up my input file, okay, and data in was declared as an IF stream up above. And always important to just make sure that it opened the file correctly, because if you have any problems later on, you don't know if it has to do with your code or it has to do with the file. So here, this just means if it can't find my file, I'm going to get an error message and I'm going to exit out of the program. Okay. All right, so I'm going to fill the array with the data from the file. So I'm going to start my counter, number of offices, at 0. I'm going to check for the end of file marker. Now I haven't found it yet because I'm just right here. Okay, so I haven't reached the end of file. I'm going to read the first element in and store it in sales sub 0. So the first element here is going to be pulled into sales sub 0, and then I'm going to increment office to 1, and then I haven't reached the end of the file. Then I'm going to read in the next line of data, and it'll store 10,500 into index 1, and etc., etc. So just to show you here, when I finish this process, right, I'm just going to put my values in here so you can see them, and I'm going to comment them so they're not part of my code. Okay. So this is what's in the file, and this is what you're going to have at index 0. This guy here is at, index 1, and this is at index 2, in your array. Okay, I don't know how many more I need, but that just gives you the idea. Okay, so this is going to go through. When I'm all done, Office is going to hold 8 because that's how many things I read in from the file. And now I can just close my input file right here because I've read the data from the file and I've stored it in the array. So now I can close the file because I'm done with it. So here's a simple for loop. The index is going to start at 0. It's going to continue while it's less than the number of offices we have, which is 8, index plus plus, And this line of code is going to accumulate my total. So the first time through, total sales is going to be, right, 0 plus sales sub 0, which is 10,000. Right? So we know that equals 10,000. Now the second time through the loop, total sales is going to be 10,000. When index is 1, I'm going to take the total sales, which is 10,000, and add to it sales sub 1, which is 10,500. Right? So this is going to be 20,500. Now remember, plus equal is just like total sales equals total sales plus sales sub index. Now when it's 2, I'm going to add to this new value 20,500. I'm going to add 11,000, and that's going to give me 31,500. And I'm going to keep adding in that fashion, and that's going to give me the total of all the values that are in my array. Now to calculate the average, I'm just going to take this total sales and divide by office, which in this case should be 8 because I've got 8 values in my input file. And that was my loop counter. Every time I read something in, I incremented it. So it's going to calculate the average. Now, the algorithm to find the highest and lowest sales is to make the highest the first sale, like 10,000, make lowest the first sale, right, whatever's at index 0, which we know is, 10,000, okay? And then we're going to have a for loop that's going to start at index 1. We don't need to start at index 0 here. It's going to go through all the rest of the elements. And if it finds something bigger, it's going to make that the highest sales. And if it finds something smaller than that, it's going to make that the lowest sales. So let's just look at this first if statement. If sales sub index, that's sales sub 1, which is 10,500. So we're checking, right, is if 10,500 is greater than this value right here, 10,000, it is, we have a new highest sales. So highest sales is now going to be 10,500. And then it's an else if, so it's going to bypass this and go back through. The index is going to be 2, so now we're going to be looking at sales sub 2, which is 11,000. And it's going to say, is 11,000 greater than the highest sales? Yes, it is. So now the highest sales is going to become 11,000. So, oops. And this is just going to go through this same process. Now index is going to become 3. We're going to look at sales sub 3, which is 12,000. Right? Well, I don't have any great examples of lowest sales in this file. 12,000 greater than 11,000? Yes, it is. So now our highest sale is 12,000. And if we had any lower sales, it would go into here and it would adjust our lowest sales as well. So that's kind of the algorithm to find a highest value and a lowest value. And then we're just displaying the results out. So let me run this. Okay. And here's our total, here's our average, here's our highest, here's our lowest. Okay, so that's kind of putting everything together and giving you a good example of taking data from a file and storing it in an array. By storing it in the array, it gives us the ability to go through it and find the total, later on to go through it and find the smallest value, later on go through it again, find the highest value, etc., etc.